I want to start with something you are going to resist. And I need you to stay inside the resistance rather than retreating from it. Because the resistance itself is the most important data point in this entire conversation. Is the filter activating? And the filter activating is exactly what we are here to examine today. Here is the thing you are going to resist. The person who drains you is not draining you. Stay with me. You know the exhaustion is real. I know. The depletion after certain conversations is measurable and specific and so consistent you can predict it before the interaction even begins. I know that some names on your phone produce a physical response in your body before you've even decided whether to answer. I know that you have sat across from certain people feeling your life force quietly leaving your body while they spoke and wondered how a human being could do that to another human being just by existing in the same room. I'm not here to tell you that exhaustion isn't real. I'm here to tell you that its source is not where you've been looking. Here is the question I want you to sit inside, honestly, before your mind begins in its negotiation. Think of the person who drains you most consistently. Now think of a time, even one single occasion, when you were in an exceptionally regulated state, genuinely rested, genuinely settled inside your own interior. Not performing okayness, but actually inhabiting it. And you encountered that same person in that state. Was the drain identical? Was the exhaustion the same, precise weight? Did you leave that specific interaction feeling the same hollowness as every other one? Almost every honest answer to that question reveals the same uncomfortable truth. The person was identical. The drain was not, because the drain was never generated by their behavior. It was generated by the state your nervous system was in when it processed their behavior. And more specifically, it was generated by the story your nervous system ran about what their behavior meant. This is the distinction that changes everything. And I need to be very precise here because it is easily misread. This is not me telling you that difficult people don't exist. They do. This is not me telling you that certain behaviors aren't genuinely harmful or that you should remain in situations that damage you. You shouldn't. This is not spiritual bypassing dressed in psychological language designed to make you responsible for other people's cruelty. This is something far more practical, powerful than any of that. Your nervous system is a meaning-making machine. It does not experience raw events. It experiences its interpretation of events, filtered through every previous experience. every unresolved pattern, every story it learned to run about certain types of behavior, certain tones of voice, certain facial expressions, certain ways of taking up space in a room. When you encounter someone your system has categorized as draining, whether consciously or not, it doesn't wait for the interaction to produce evidence. It begins generating the drain the moment the categorization activates, before they speak, before they do anything. The story is already running. The filter is already processing. The depletion is already beginning. And then they speak, and everything they say gets run through that filter. And the filter finds confirmation everywhere it looks, because filters always find what they are designed to find. That's what filters do. This is why the drain feels so consistent. Not because that person is consistently doing something to you, but because your filter is consistently running the same story about them. Now here is where this becomes genuinely liberating rather than just intellectually interesting. You have zero sovereign access to what they do. You cannot change their behavior. You cannot control their energy. You cannot reliably predict what they will say or how they will say it, or what it will cost you if the interaction goes in a particular direction. But the filter, the meaning-making layer where the drain is actually being generated, that is entirely inside you. Which means, unlike every external solution you have ever tried, the boundary scripts, the limiting contact, the energy protection rituals, the careful management of how much access they get, the filter is the one thing you actually have complete access to. Change the filter and you change the drain. Not because they changed, because the story your nervous system runs about them changed. I look at the numbers of this channel honestly every time I speak to you. 195 subscribers on YouTube, 162 followers on TikTok, Rumble building from zero, 25 people who took the first step toward examining their own filter, one who committed to the complete recalibration. The gap between thousands of views and the 25 people who moved is this exact dynamic in operation. Most people watching feel the recognition, the deep specific "this is exactly my life" recognition. And then the filter runs a story about change being too much work, about it being easier to manage the external person than to examine the internal perception, about the drain being their fault and therefore their responsibility to stop. That story is the filter protecting itself, because examined filters have to update. And updating means the familiar, even when the familiar is painful, gets replaced by something the nervous system hasn't mapped yet. And unmapped territory to a survival state nervous system always feels more dangerous than familiar pain. But here is what I know from the one soul who committed to the complete recalibration. When the filter updates, the drain doesn't just decrease, The entire architecture of your relational world shifts, not because the people in it changed, because the meaning-making layer running every interaction changed. And when that layer changed, everything changes. What you notice, what you select, what costs you nothing, what you finally walk away from, not because you managed it, but because you genuinely outgrew the story that was generating it. The mirror practice is the direct architecture for accessing and updating the filter layer, not talking about it, not understanding it intellectually from a safe cognitive distance, accessing it at the biological level where it actually lives and where it actually runs its stories about the people in your life. The reset is free, 1 minute of direct contact with your own meaning-making system. The full practice is €19. It is the complete update to the filter that has been generating drains you thought were coming from outside you. Every person who has ever left you hollow was showing you something specific about your filter. You just kept looking at them instead of at the story your nervous system was telling about them. Look at the story. That's where the drain lives. That's where the sovereign work begins. Drop story in the comments if this landed somewhere real today. I am Tudor. I examined the filter. I changed the story. I'll see you inside.